уважаемые зрители, добрый день. Это программа «Самоизоляция Лив», в эфире Ингрида Ким. Сегодня у меня в гостях Эдуарда Молина, политический деятель из Мексики, секретарь Национальной партии. Hello, Mr. Eduardo.
How are you? I am fine, thanks.
Good. Thank you. So we will be talking English because our language is international. I would like to ask about the condition nowadays in Mexico, how it's going quarantine, and what's special maybe options you have for your population now, what's the rules of quarantine, would like to know.
Okay. Well, in Mexico, we started some late in comparison with other countries, for example, of Europe or the United States, even though United States is situated at the north of Mexico. We couldn't notice some cases of COVID at only at very, very advanced the month of February. And maybe at the principles of March, we noticed the severe cases of COVID. The government make the decision to close the country at the later days of March. I thought about 22 of March. The government decided to close the country and to stop the non-essential activities for economy, including those that are related to the industry, those related to delivery of food, to the schools, the main labors, and the offices. They were closed, and only remained open airports, the industry related to the construction, to the industries of the minery, and that was the first step that they take in account. In Spanish, they called the sana distancia, which in English is like the sane distance, and it means that it is a policy based on keeping the 5 feet of distance between person, to use the mask, to wear the mask when you are out at the streets, and in the meaning of the possibilities to keep you into your home. I think it is the classic quarantine that had been applied to many countries and in Europe and also in the United States, and that was the first step. Okay, in the second step, when the government noticed that even though it was a quarantine, the number of cases it was increasing up, they had to take a second measure that was related to cancel every intern travels between flights. Nowadays flights are canceled in majority. They are only open the essential routes, and nowadays they tended to decrease the mobility between the homelands, between the states of Mexico, and what that was the second effort to try to decrease the cases of COVID, but it was not enough to stop the number of cases. Nowadays, at the middle of May, we are already we have not already reached the peak of the contagious, and we know that we are going to reach it maybe at the middle of June. So the time that we were delayed in respect with some other countries, it is the time that we are going to be delayed to be out of the quarantine, and that is a disadvantage because we are losing some potential activities related to our economy, and that make us in a little measure so vulnerable of the measures that are decided to the United States, in order that the United States government is they are tricky. They are anxious to decide to reopen the country, and as Mexico is an important auxiliar for the American economy, so we are in some ways we are pressed to reopen also in the same, maybe at the same time that they are going to reopen their economy. So that has been very criticized by the opposition of the government, because there are some measures of the government that are tended to reopen even partially the country, but that measures don't take in account the special situation of some population of Mexico that lives in communities that are very far away, and they're apart without the enough services of health, public services, and that make them so vulnerable for new contagious, and also to don't have the access to the technology and the means to be well.
I ask about government support, especially for small and medium businesses. How is it going in your country, and it's interesting. And President's Amlo measures concerning support the population during COVID time.
Yes. Okay, it is a difficult topic in my country, because the president has now announced any measure of support for the micro, the little, and the medium enterprises. It has not been announced any kind of support by the taxes or any other measure that actually has been taken in other countries. And the opposition, the political opposition, said with the major confederations, the major unions of entrepreneurs, they denounced in some way that it was necessary to have a complete pack of the tax measures related to increase or to support the enterprises that are suffering actually the effects, the economic effects of the closing, and the government has not take that in account. So we are watching that the support of the government is more related to develop directly to what they decide is for people, support of money in effective. I mean, they send them bills, and that's the way. That's the policy that they decided to support people. But it is not necessary very well informed. There is no a concrete measure to decide who is going to need more that kind of support. There is no a specific and a clear list when they can notice who has been benefited with that measure, and we have no clear way what is going to be the specific way that this support is going to help them to reopen, to increase or to improve their enterprises. So it's money that we thought actually it was going to be used only to keep the loyalty of people, political loyalty of people, instead of improving the productivity of the country.
I heard news that Mexico, like Belarus, didn't confirm quarantine officially. Is it true?
The Mexican president didn't quarantine. Yes, it is true. he's used to since the beginning of his government. He has been used to make interviews with media daily. He from Monday to Friday, he daily is dedicated about 2 hours to talk with media, and he has not suspended that measure. He on the other side, he has reopened another sessions during the day, one at night, one very earlier. Right now it is 8 a.m. in Mexico, and he is on his interview and his day. He called him the mañaneras. It is at the morning or morning earlier, and has not canceled that media interviews. At the moment, we criticize that because it is obvious that one of the measures established by the government was that it was forbidden to make reunions of more than 50 people, and in that interviews we know there is more than 50 people in the interview. So it has been difficult to have a president that seems to not believe in the COVID and the health effects that it has in some way, as Trump and as Bolsonaro have lived. And I think in a population like Mexican that is tended to have a representation of the president and to follow what the president does, it has been contraproducent because there is many people in Mexico that still doesn't believe to the existence of the COVID.
Well, they don't believe, but I would like to ask about US. Any help, maybe by equipment, maybe by some medical kits, any help from the neighbor country to Mexico to treat COVID?
Help from foreign countries or
Yeah,
from...
especially from America. Yes, asking, is it
Okay.
going?
I think from America we have received some. Let me look for the name of the pieces. Is we have been supplied with funds. That is the medical equipment they need to maintain people ill with the COVID illness, and I think it was about 2,000 to 2,050 funds that the United States sent to us. We also received support from China. We received support from another European countries, but in a little measure. I think internationally it tends to be thought that Mexico is like the little children of the United States or something like that, but not necessarily is the case. And this is a great example. It has been only a measure of solidarity, but not necessarily a measure of help in self. We know United States are facing up the I think the darkest challenge in their history, and I cannot believe they are in the situation to send help to another countries in the measure that they were used to. United States, it is known that is the country that has kept the worst number of cases, and in that order we have not received that force of supply. But in the other way, we the Mexican government, which did, was to completely give to the army the control of the hospitals and the health centers. That was also a measure that we little criticized because it is not normal that the armed forces takes control of the health system, but that was the kind of the emergency answer that the government find out uh, to face up the crisis.
Where are in your country, Cancun, no, many beautiful, outstanding touristic places, which is usually the flow of tourists going every year. What do you think about after pandemic, how it will be developed this tourism side in your country, and maybe any measures and regulations about this, consequences after this complete?
Okay, do you know, Cancun? We we have now actually we have very interesting places of tourism, but we know that the tourism is exactly I think the sector of the industry and economy that is going to be more affected because of the effects of the crisis. First of all, because of that means traveling, and people, I think, is going to travel the less during the months after the pandemic. I think that even though or meanwhile we have not a vaccine to face the virus, we are not really prepared to travel entirely safely, and the people that knows that. So trying about the most known destinies of Mexico, they depend on more of the half of their income about the foreign travelers. So we are not that sure how it's going to affect on the confidence of the travelers, of the international travelers especially, about the effects of taking a plane, to taking a ticket to go from another country to another. And I think the travelers are going to be more strictures about their decision to travel, and that could affect severely or economy in the tourism sector very severe. But government is now trying to support the local travelers. We are not sure that is going to work out, but I think it's an effort. They are going to, they just yesterday announced that they are going to keep up the little holiday weekends that we have in our official calendar, and that in that measure to keep to support the tourism industry. But in the other side, the cameras of the tourism sector, they know that they are going to face I don't think months, but years of really very very bad incomes. So it is severe for the Mexican economy, that because there are states, for example, I will give my homeland that is Oaxaca, and Oaxaca is a state which incomes depends on the most because of the tourism. So if you have not travel, entertainment, and another activities, economic activities related to the tourism, we are not prepared to survive economically without that strong incomes that were the incomes of the economic incomes that are related to the tourism. So I think it's going to be a difficult season for many Mexicans, but we have not faced something related in history. But I think Mexican people is going to do something to live in the meanwhile.
Oh, and my last question about what do you recommend to do during the this time self-isolation, maybe especially what Mexicans doing nowadays, how we spend their home time.
It is very funny because Mexicans, we are socially we have many we have a very a very special fun view of things, and I think Mexicans every time try to keep up the better, the happiest from any situation, and specifically from difficult situation. I think Mexicans have not been entirely straight about the quarantine. We know that there is almost like the 30% of the population that is still at streets, but it also is related because of the people that has no formal employment, and they have the needing to keep up to the streets to look forward something to eat. So it is difficult for the most poor population of Mexico, but the population that is fortunately and they have the opportunity I do to keep in home. So we are we are bored as never, but we have for example we have a special measure in Mexico. It was the cross of two situations. Mexico is one of the countries that has more consume of alcohol, beer, another kind of drinks. And that's because in Mexican culture, the alcohol or the alcohol consumption is seemed like the unnecessary key of any party, of any holiday, of any kind of yes, party to have fun. And meanwhile, the quarantine was applied. The production of beer was suspended, and also some local governments forbidden the sale of beer because they noticed that in some cases the beer increased the violence in some local communities of Mexico. So Mexicans, we already are at home, and we were used to have party, to consume alcohol, and we have no beer because of that cross of measures. So Mexicans are trying to spend out the quarantine by giving fun with in Mexico we call them memes. They are funny pictures that describes satirically some situations. And in the special case of Mexico, we are doing every time that kind of pictures. We are having meetings. Mexico is not a country that has that level of coverture of the internet access. Internet is still a difficult media, or that is not supplied to all the Mexicans. So the Mexicans that are and the possibilities to access to the internet, well, we are improving the economy by acquiring into the local shops online, and we are also remitted to making Zoom reunions every day with the Mexicans who work. We are working every hour a day, so we are very busy in some special keys. But I know Mexican in general, we are facing the quarantine more on the what is going to be further than when the quarantine, what we are going to do in the future when the quarantine. I think the phrase "when the quarantine is over, we are going to." When the quarantine is over, I am going to. So we are a people, we are a population that believes in some way, in some measures, in hope. So we in many tragedies, we have made from the hope, I think, the only resource to survive and to keep alert. So I think this is the exception for Mexicans.
Thank you very much for the interview. It was a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you very much. Это была программа «Самоизоляция Лив». В гостях у меня был Эдуард Молина, мексиканский политик. До новых встреч. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.